Hello and salut everybody. So family, I am here this afternoon to discuss a very exciting and one of my favorite books of all times in the Bible. And that is the book of Esther. Book of Esther is one of the books that the story of Esther I have put on my list since last year. Because this book, the story of Esther, the whole story in the book of Esther, it is something that inspires me all the time. And whenever I am fasting, I play it. The audio version, I play this every night before I go to bed. So the book of Esther is something that really encourages me, and I have learned so much from it. And I so wanted to come for us to do a series because there's no way I can do it in one session. So I was going to do a series with us. But since we are going through, all the Bible books in the Bible, we are going through the whole Bible. We got to book of Esther. It had just finished. So you have, I'm going to put the description, the instruction, the links in the description for you to follow it, right? To go back and get caught up on the Bible study. I call it Bible study, mini Bible study of book of Esther through KANGUKA. So like I said, book of Esther, it's a book that and there's so much to learn from. So I'm going to try to give you high level, and we're going to come back and dig deeper into each character if it's possible. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm going to try to make sure that I don't get ahead of myself. So I need to make sure that I'm on track. I don't get ahead of myself, because this is a book that it's a book that every single one of us, should learn from, should read and try to understand. Because if you can understand the book of Esther and the story, there's so much we can get from here. Our situation, our personal, professional, everything that we go through in life, if we can understand the book of Esther, and get the moral lessons and all the lessons from this, I'm telling you, we'll be in a better place. So I want to discuss the book of Esther today, and I want to encourage you to go through KANGUKA and also go through the whole teaching of the book of Esther. But until then, welcome back to Chatting with Nicole. If you have not subscribed, do me a favor, subscribe right now, share this video, like, and also check out the rest of the videos. Thank you very much for being here. So we know that the book of Esther is really dramatic and inspiring story set in a Persian Empire, right? During the reign of King Xerxes. King Xerxes. The story, it tells us a story, the story of a Jewish woman named Esther, who became queen, and, courageously saved the whole Jewish people, not just because but because of her, her spiritual, not her adopted father. Through her adopted father, they say because of her, the Jewish people were saved from genocide. It was supposed to be like they were going to have the first genocide, the first ever genocide. But Esther and the love of her uncle and the wisdom of her uncle, they were able to save the Jewish people from genocide. Although God was never mentioned by name, his guidance and his protection, it is the evidence of his orchestrating this perfectly is right there. They never call his name, but you can see it there. Esther bravery and Mordecai faith play a central role in this story. The characters in this book, we have King Xerxes, who was over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. Oh my God, it's amazing. He was huge. He was a big king. And his first wife was Vashti. And Vashti was the one that he wanted to show off. And Vashti said, no, I'm not doing it. All of this was planned by God. And then we have Esther, who was a young Jewish woman who became a queen of Persia. And then Mordecai was the adoptive father, a cousin of, Esther. He was the adoptive father of Esther. and her guardian, and then, really, really devoted to the Jew. And then we have Haman. Haman, who was the, he was the king's advisor who plotted the genocide just because he did not like one person, Mordecai. So like I said, this story is so poetic. It's so amazing. If you have not read the book of Esther, I really want you to watch, to follow, and get to know this story. And I promise you, it will change your life. So what was happening is the story started. So the king, Xerxes, have a mandatory party for every single person, and it was mandatory. So Vashti also have her party, because the king, they stay separately back then. So she also have her party, and the king also has his. Well, the king was so happy, so he wanted the Vashti, the queen, to come so he can show her off, because the queen was so beautiful. I'm talking about physical beauty, not internal beauty. Back then in Old Testament, when we talk about beauty, it's always physical beauty. But Vashti refused, because God had planned. Vashti refused the king of 27 provinces. She said, no, I'm not coming, because God has planned. So Vashti refused. Vashti resisted, because the king may have been drunk and just want to show her off. But that time, you couldn't show off the woman. The woman was covered, you know what I mean? But he wanted to show her, because he probably was drunk. But she stood her ground and say no. And again, only because God made her say no. The king was upset. The king was upset. And because he was upset, and all the men were like, what Vashti did, it could cause other women. You know how we do it in 2025. Because one person did something, we're like, because of this person, is going to change the way people see. Anyway, I don't want to go through that. But because Vashti refused, so the king advisors advised the king that because Vashti did not set a good example to other women, because they thinking that every woman now going to refuse their husbands. So they were like, no, she can't continue to be a queen, because she's not setting a good example. All of this, long story short, they advised the king that they should go find even more beautiful, virgins for the king. So they went and searched and selected, and they did, their purification. They selected them. They did their purification. They did their modeling. They did all they got to do. And because God has chosen Esther, even before Esther was born, God has already chose Esther to be a queen to save the Jewish people. The king ended up choosing Esther and loving Esther more than all of them, and making Esther his queen. So Esther became a queen, because again, it was planned by God. So I'm going to give you super high level of this story. So Esther becoming a queen. After Queen Vashti, disobey the king, Esther is chosen as a new queen for her beauty and grace. Though her Jewish identity was kept, because her uncle told her to keep her identity. And only because, even though this is saying that she was beautiful because of her beauty and for her grace, it was because God has already planned this whole thing. All right. And then the second, one we want to look at is Haman's plot. Haman, a high-ranking official, become enraged. When Mordecai refused to bow to him, because Mordecai knew that, you can only bow to God Almighty. You cannot bow to a human being, especially not Haman. So Mordecai refused to bow to him. So what he did, he was convinced. He convinced the king in retaliation. You know how we talk about retaliation all the time here. Because Mordecai refused to bow to him, so he hid it. In his mind, who are you to refuse? So what he did is, to retaliate against Mordecai, he asked about Mordecai. He went to the king. He convinced the king to issue a decree to destroy all the Jewish people. That's why I was saying it was the first genocide. And the king accepted it because he was his right-hand man. So he told him, because he has the power to do it, the king told him to do whatever he wants. So they wrote all these decrees to destroy the whole Jewish population. Okay, so that's that. And Esther courage. Mordecai urged Esther to intervene with this whole plot to destroy the Jewish, risking her life. He wanted her to risk her life. She approached the king without being summoned and invited him and Haman to a banquet. So just to give you, before you start reading, when Mordecai found this out, Mordecai, rent his clothes, and he was wearing sackcloth. Back then they wear sackcloth when you were in mourning or when you were fasting to show that you were in pain. Mordecai did that. Mordecai hated the fact he was distressed about what is going to happen through the Jewish people. So he convinced Esther. Esther, back then, you cannot just go to the king. The king has to ask you to come. So if the king does not invite you, you go there. Because of what Vashti did, they signed a decree. But going forward, you can only be called to come to the king. If you come to the king, even though you are queen, you come to the king without being invited by the king, you'll be killed. So Mordecai is telling Esther to go to the king and intervene in what is going to happen. They're going to kill, destroy, erase the whole Jewish population. But, Esther was afraid that I don't want to die. So Mordecai, convinced her. We're gonna use the word, the lesson in a minute. But Mordecai convinced her that she has to. And Mordecai said, this is why you are here. This is why you are queen. In other words, Mordecai just convinced her, this is why you are here. You have to do this. So she sacrificed her own self. She said they fasted for them. She asked them to fast for 3 days, and she'll fast with her own maid, everyone, her maids, they're gonna fast for 3 days, and she's going to go in, and if she dies, she dies. So she really, when she understood, when Mordecai convinced her, she understood, she accepted that. She understood, she said, okay, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna go see the king, and if I die, I die. So that's just, the high level of that. So that's Esther courage we're talking about. And then we having the turning point. The turning point at the second banquet. The turning point, so Esther went to the king, and when Esther got there, because this whole thing, after 3 days of fasting, obviously, after they fasted 3 days, that's why I play this book every time I'm fasting. So after they fasted 3 days, they went in, she went in, and when she got there, the king it's like the king was already expecting him. The king that I don't invite you, I'm going to kill you. When she got there, the king welcomed her like that decree didn't even existed. And he even said, what do you want? Even the half of my kingdom, I'll give it to you. Even the 127 provinces, I'll give to you. What do you want? What do you want? And she told them she wanted to invite him and Haman to the banquet. So the turning point is the second banquet, So they went there, and he invited them to a second banquet. So on the second banquet, Esther revealed to, her identity as being a Jewish, and exposed the plan of Haman. Because even though the king was telling Haman to do whatever he wants, the king didn't even understand what he was telling him to do. He just letting him know, you are my right hand man. Whatever you want to do, do. He didn't even look to understand what is he trying to do and why. He just let him do whatever he wanted. Now, on the second banquet, Esther explaining what had happened, what Haman had been plotting to do. And the king was confused because, first of all, the king never knew that Esther was Jewish because Mordecai told her not to do it because of, again, there was a plan. So at the second banquet, which is the turning point, is when Esther revealed herself as she's a Jewish, and Haman is plotting to kill all the Jewish, to wipe off the whole Jewish population. And when the king heard this, he was mad. So the king was furious. He's like, what? So the king was furious. He had no idea what he allowed Haman to do. So the king was furious. Haman was there. And long story short, Haman has created a gallows to hang Mordecai just because Mordecai does not like to bow to him. Even before the turning point, the second gala, the second, the second banquet, Haman went there trying to find a way because his wife and his friends told him to tell the king to hang Haman, to hang Mordecai. So Haman had been wanting to hang Mordecai forever, hang him and then wipe off all the Jewish people, right? So he has a gallows made. His wife convinced him to make a gallows where he can hang Haman. So he had this gallows made in his home. So he's been looking for a way to hang Haman for no reason. You know what I mean? So through this turning point, through that, banquet that, Esther prepared, when Esther exposed him and the king was furious, now this gallows that he prepared for Mordecai became his own. They hang him on that same gallows that he prepared for Mordecai. So this just tells you that the evil, when we plot evil on other people, especially innocent people, especially God's people, that he has already planned, has things for, it will come back to us. It will come back to you. It will come back to you. All evil plan does not go, if it's God's will, God may allow certain things, but if it is God's will and, somebody does nothing to you and you stand on your ground, in your belief, because Mordecai stayed on his belief. He refused to bow to a human being. And he was on God's side. And God delivered him in a big time. Big time. So salvation and celebration. So I talk about Esther becoming a queen, Haman plot, and then Esther courage because of Mordecai and because of God's already planned this. The turning point, we talk about the turning point when Haman was exposed. Now, the fifth thing I want to talk about is salvation and celebration. So salvation and celebration, because when Haman was now hanged, even his 10 children, all his children were killed. Everyone who was against the Jewish, they were killed. This king allowed the Jewish to defend themselves. He gave them power. I am telling you. So the power that Haman had became Mordecai. So everything that Mordecai had, Haman had the power and everything that the king gave Haman. And even though he was so powerful, he still was trying to crucify and wipe off the Jewish people and hang Haman and hang Mordecai. Everything was turning to Mordecai. So Mordecai was the big guy now. That's why Jewish people still celebrate Mordecai today. So Mordecai, everything that was plotted, the plot backfired on Haman. Now Haman is dead and his whole family is dead. His children are dead. And now there is a victory. So salvation and celebration, that I just want to say that there is a victory. And the event is commemorated by festivals or Purim today. It was commemorated by festival or Purim, and it's celebrated, deliberately. This is the God-given. God literally just told Mordecai, he gave him a blank sign check. You know how somebody can give you a check? Can you imagine what do you call it? This guy, Elon Musk, just telling you, give you a blank check and say, write whatever you want. Or Donald Trump just calling you and telling you, okay, Nicole, say whatever you want, it is yours. Yeah, that's what Mordecai, the Jewish people got. Mordecai, the king basically said, whatever you want, write it, sign it. He gave him the ring. He signed everything, whatever they want. And the Jewish people, overcame, conquered, because God has already planned it since the beginning. Okay, so like I said, this is a long story. It is a long story. But I'm trying to get you excited for you to read this book. the story, the lesson that I have learned from Esther, the courage and faith. Esther teaches us to be brave in face of fear. She risked her life because God planted and because Mordecai gave her the revelation. She risked her life to save her people, showing that faith in God can empower us to do great things. Because even when she understood, she was like, I'll go in. If I die, I die. Okay? Purpose and timing. This is the lessons of Esther. Purpose and timing. Her story reminds us that we may be placed in a certain positions for such time as this. This is what I was going to wait to read you. Because when Mordecai asked him to go and intervene, she was afraid. And Mordecai told her cousin, or, you can say that her adoptive father, say, who says that? How do you, who to say that this very situation is not the reason why you are queen? You know what I mean? So he's saying, this is the reason why you are here. This is when he gave her that revelation. Oh, she understood. So he said, for such a time as this, that is, you can read this at Esther 4:14. Who to say that this is not why you are in this position? You think you're just beautiful? You think that, oh, you are lucky? You think that it's because of your fame? It's because you know people in good, high places? Because of your parents? No. There is a reason God put you here. So for that meaning, our lives have divine purpose. Every single one of us, we have divine purpose. So the power, there's so much power and so much lessons in this book. Okay, so we're gonna learn the lesson. That's the lesson for Esther. The lesson that I learned from Mordecai is integrity and loyalty. Mordecai refused to bow to Haman, standing firm in his faith and value. I want to make sure I don't miss this, because as excited as I am, if I have to put some, thoughts down so that I don't keep you here for like 3 hours. So the lessons for Mordecai is integrity and loyalty. We should not compromise. Just because somebody threatened us, just because somebody says something, or just because we want the money, we want the fame, we want the title, we want the position, we should not compromise, no matter what. So that's what integrity and loyalty to God got him what he got, gave him a huge reward. So that is the lesson for Mordecai. And the second is wisdom and guidance. He guided Esther with discernment and trusted, in God's plan. He guided her to trust in God's plan. That's how I'm like, we have to raise our children. We have to guide our children the way Mordecai guided Esther, showing the importance of mentorship and spiritual leadership. Oh, I love that. Mordecai showed Esther spiritual mentorship, the power and the importance of leadership and spiritual mentorship. Your good deeds never goes unnoticed. That's one thing that I also learned, because most of the time we do things for people and they don't repay us, or they don't thank us. They don't say, you don't see the fruit, and you get discouraged. What we learn here, if you read, when you go to read Esther and follow the teaching of Esther, it proves that your good deeds never goes unnoticed. Because the reward for Mordecai, when Mordecai was on the gate, some people who were plotting a coup against the king, and Mordecai found out. He told Esther, and they arrested those people and killed them. And first they did an investigation and found out it is the truth, and they killed them. But when Mordecai did that, no one even said thank you. He never got anything. He never got any reward. That's why I'm putting this as good deed. Your good deed never goes unnoticed. Mordecai, nobody said anything to him, but God already had planned. God knew that this good deed that he did, he's going to reap from it. He's going to have what is planned for him. So because he did that and no one did anything for him, he didn't give up. He didn't even do it to get a reward. He only did it because it was the right thing to do, right? So your reward, it is showing that to us because of his good deeds. When the king, God caused the king not to sleep that night. There was a night he couldn't sleep. So he was like, okay, let me read the book. They brought him the book of Chronicles and he read. And he read that way. Mordecai did this to me, for me. He saved my life. He's like, what do we do for him? And he's, they were saying, no, we didn't do anything for him. They answered to him like, we didn't do anything. And he was like, what? This man saved my life. Because normally when somebody saves your life, especially like a king, the king will give you whatever you want, right? But they didn't do that for Mordecai. They didn't do anything. So when the God caused the king not to go to sleep, to have insomnia. So when he started to read, and he did it right on time because Haman was Haman was in the living room, in the house. Haman came to the house to ask, the king to permission to kill Mordecai. But that night, God caused the king not to sleep. For the king to read this and read the story and remember that there was somebody at your gate who saved your life. So he asked, what did we do? And they said, we didn't do anything for him. And he said, who's out there? And they said, it's Haman. He called Haman. And he asked Haman, he said, what would I do? What would I do for someone that I want to honor? What would I do to someone a king wants to honor? Haman thought, oh, it's me. The king wants to honor me. So he told the king what he would want. So he told the king what he would want. And the king said, go do exactly what you said. Do not let anything come out of this. Exactly what you said to Mordecai, the Jew. Haman, he cannot say no. He cannot say no. So he went and did exactly honor Mordecai, like the king said, because he described exactly how the king should honor somebody the king wants to honor, thinking that it was him. Since he gotten all the honor, he's thinking it was him. But when he said that to the king told him to go do it for Mordecai. And he did everything that he said because he cannot disobey the king, right? So he did everything. So that's why I'm saying your good deeds never gone unnoticed. And it happened right on time. Right on time. When he came there trying to get permission to kill Mordecai. But God already have something else planned because of his good deed, his integrity, his loyalty, and his guidance, his wisdom, his guidance, his love for his Jewish people, and the way he handled everything. So because sometimes we only want the reward we want to see, and we don't see it, we get discouraged. So that's why I'm saying your good deeds never goes unnoticed. Your reward will come to you at the right time and may come through someone else. It's never the same packaging. It may be someone else. It may be when you're not even expecting it. It may even come through your children. It may come to your husband. It may come through somebody else. But our reward, when we do good deeds, we have integrity. We stand tall, to God, and we are doing what he's supposed to do. And we are doing our sacrifices. We are giving and serving and doing everything in his name. Oh, I'm telling you, your reward will come to you at the right time and may come through someone else. So don't get discouraged when nothing is happening. Don't ever get discouraged when you are doing good deeds and nothing is happening. Okay, so that is the lessons for Mordecai. The lessons that we learn from King Xerxes is the power of influence. Okay, King Xerxes was swayed by both Haman and Esther in a very different ways. You see that he was swayed by Haman to kill, to erase the whole Jewish population without even knowing, and he given him permission to do that without even knowing what he was allowing him to do. Esther also, he was swayed by Esther as well in a different way to save them without even knowing truly what he was doing, because God was behind all of it. So this is showing us, showing how leader must be careful about who they listen to. I'm just saying, because he was this big king and he just listened because because Haman was his hand man. He just let him do whatever without thinking for himself, without just like do whatever. He did the same thing for Esther, but thankfully Esther was to reverse what Haman did. Thankfully, he listened to her too. So this lesson is just for leaders. Leaders, no matter where you are, you have to have your own mind. You have to ask questions. You have to have the 3 whys. Why? You have to always ask why. And you have to know what is being done in your name. Because if they have, wiped off all, the Jewish people, it will be in his kingdom. You know what I mean? So as a leader, the lesson we learn here is we have to be careful who we are listening to and what we are giving authority, what we are saying yes or no to. And the second one for King Xerxes is justice and responsibility. Though initially passive, he ultimately acted justly when the truth was revealed. Okay? So when the truth was revealed, reminding us that, it is never too late to do the right thing. Even though you messed up, you didn't know, you can still do the right thing. And the last but not least for King Xerxes is no matter how powerful you are, I love this one, right? That's why I have to put this at the end. No matter how powerful you are, God can influence you to do his plan. Because King Xerxes was over 127 provinces from Asia to Africa. But God was moving. God was working in him. He didn't even know. Everything that he was doing, it was when he could not sleep, it was God who took away his sleep. When he was reading and they read Mordecai, what Mordecai did for him, it was God working. When Esther came, when he should have killed Esther because she should have been invited, but she was not invited, she came, that was God working. Everything that King Xerxes was doing, him even calling Vashti to come so that he can show her off, it was God working. Everything, God was using him. So that's why I say no matter how powerful you are, every president, every king bows down to God. God can control. That's why I always encourage us to pray for our leaders. No matter which country, we need to pray for our leaders because God can walk through them. God can change their mind. God can use them. God can do major things through them. So this teaches us that no matter how powerful, no matter how many provinces, God can influence you to do his plan. So that's the lessons that we learn from, King Xerxes. Now the lesson we are going to learn from Haman, it is pride comes before fall. Pride comes before fall. Haman, arrogance. He was so arrogant because he thought he got it all, and he hated his arrogance and his hatred led his downfall. His story is warning against pride. Remember, we talked about pride last time. Haman's story is warning against pride, against vengeance, and against abusive of power, abusing power. That's the story of Haman. So the first lesson for Haman is pride comes before a fall. Haman, arrogance and hatred, toward Mordecai and the Jewish people, it started with Mordecai, just one person. Because of one person, he hated the whole population of Jewish because one person refused to bow to him. So it led to his downfall completely. His whole children were wiped out because of his arrogance and hatred, and his story is warning against pride, vengeance, and abusing power. I want to repeat this because it's very important and we talked about it last time. The second lesson that we want Haman to learn here, the second lesson we learned from Haman is consequences of evil schemes. There are consequences when you are plotting against somebody, God's people. You are plotting against people you don't even know. They didn't do anything for you, but you are plotting against them. You are plotting against them. You want to destroy God's people. They're standing firm. They're just doing God's will, but you are plotting against them. So there are consequences against of evil scheme. His plot backfire, showing that evil intention often lead to destruction. Evil intentions often, leads to destruction. So we have to be careful. He wasn't supposed to be, Haman was not supposed to be born. That is the other thing I was gonna say that I did not know. I didn't learn, I didn't understand this one. When I kept playing Esther over and over and over all these years, I never put two and two together. Haman wasn't supposed to be born if Saul did what he was ordered to do. So I want to lead you guys to, this is what I learned through KANGUKA, and he revealed this because I did not even think about it. Because if you go to the book of Esther, and you can say that they describe Haman as, you go to book of Esther, chapter 3, it say after these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, and the Agagite. The Agagites, the first place that I heard Agagite was in the book of Samuel. It is saying that the son, Haman was the son of Hammedatha. You know me, my tongue can get the Agagite, right? When he said the Agagite, and then he started talking, I'm like, oh my God, I missed it this whole time. That's why when you want to read the Bible, you have to get the Holy Ghost to help you. Otherwise, you're going to miss key points. I didn't even put two and two together. The reason why I'm saying Haman wasn't supposed to be born is because when God ordered Saul in the book of Samuel, if you read the book of Samuel, chapter 15, first book of Samuel 15, God ordered Saul to destroy the Agagites. God ordered Saul to destroy all of them. But because of Saul's own greed, he did not destroy all of them. Remember, that's how God was so mad that he took away his kingship from him. I'm trying to find the verse for you. So because King Saul did not destroy the Agagites, Haman was born. Haman was born because King disobeyed God's order, because God knew that Haman was going to be born, and when Haman was born, he was going to want to wipe the Jewish people, his people. So God knew this was going to happen. The book of Esther, the plan of Haman, God already knew that back in 1 Samuel. That's why God asked Saul to destroy all the Agagites. But Saul, because of his greed, I'm repeating it again, because of his greed, he did not do it. He spared them. Now, God has to find a different plan. This is why I'm telling you, he has already planned all of this even before Esther was born, even before Mordecai was born. God already have a plan that Esther was going to, save the Jewish people with her, her cousin, Mordecai. So if you read 1 Samuel 15, it will tell you that God ordered Saul to kill all the Agagite, everything, even the animals. He asked him to wipe them all away out, but he didn't do it. Because he did not do it, that's why Haman was born, and he carried on this plan, but God was ahead of him. So that's why I put on here that Haman wasn't supposed to be born. So the lessons for Haman is pride comes before a fall. So we have to make sure that we don't arrogance and hatred and pride and vengeance and abusive of power. We have to pray against it. We have to pray against it. And plotting evil scheme on God's people, we have to stop it, because it will not end well with us. Okay, so that is the lesson learned from Haman. Now, the lesson learned from Vashti. Vashti, dignity and self-respect. Okay, because Vashti was just thinking, for her, because it wasn't right for the king to be calling her to show her off, because the traditions did not, you're not supposed to be showing your wife off like that. So she stood her ground, not knowing that it was God who was hardening her heart not to do it. It was God leading her not to do it anyway. But she held her ground, and she didn't do what the king was asking her to do. Vashti stood her ground and refused to be, objectify, I should say. I was like, how do I even say this? Objectify is what Vashti refused to be objectified. All right. And then, even a great person, personal cause. She knew this is the biggest king, but she refused. She stood her ground. She refused. Her story highlights the importance of self-respect and moral conviction. Self-respect, we have to have self-respect. So not just because if you show yourself, you're going to have fame, you're going to have subscriptions, and people are going to praise you, you're going to forget the laws. You're going to forget the tradition. You're going to forget where you come from and go and give yourself and do crazy things just for fame. You know what I mean? That's why I'm putting here, it is self-respect and self-respect and moral conviction. We have to have that. And also, I want to add that even though Vashti did all of this to her ground and with her dignity and self-respect, and she held her ground and do what is right for her, it is because of God. God is the one who made her do this. Because if it wasn't God, I'm sure she would have gone. But God had planned this. She only did that because it was God, who hardened her heart and make her refuse to do this for his plan, his big plan that he had planned. Because if Vashti has to get out of the way for Esther to come in so that Esther and Mordecai can save, the Jewish people, because they were about to be wiped off. And Esther has to come in so that Haman can be destroyed, because Saul refused to destroy the Agagites back in the day. Because if Haman and his children were not destroyed, then his children are going to be born, and then another one is going to cause, do genocide on Jewish people, because it was for them to do that. You know what I mean? So it is so much to learn about Esther. I am telling you guys. So what I have learned, I just want to end with this. What I have learned so much is the moral spiritual lesson that I learned through KANGUKA, through Chris Ndikomina. When I read this, some of them I did not know before, even though I listened to Esther many million times. The moral spiritual lessons that I learned is, so there's so much moral, spiritual lessons that we learn through here. So that's why I want you to go to the teaching so that you can listen to it yourself. Courage and faith. Esther, bravery, and Mordecai, faith, play an central role in this story. And justice and reversal of fortune, really. The story highlights poetic justice and the reversal of evil plans, plain and simple. But what I want to say is that the biggest lesson for me is God, everything that you are going through, no matter where you are, God has planned for you. God can move you, can use you, can transform you, can change your circumstances. God is the master of every circumstance. That's the biggest lesson, is God can do wherever you are, whoever you are, your position, no matter whether you're president, whether you are, you are somebody who sweeps, the floor. No matter what your position, God can use you. God can transform you. God can make you do things. God can use you no matter how big, no matter how small you are. Wherever you are, there is a reason why you are there. God has plans for all of us. So we are always hating where we are, our situation, what we are doing, and all of that. when you read this, it's going to help you know that wherever you are, God can use you. With whatever you have, God can use you. God can make you do things, can transform you to do his plan, to accomplish his plan. So wherever we are, instead of complaining that I don't like this or I hate this, ask God to use you wherever you are right now. Use you to do his will wherever you are today. Whatever you have, ask God to help you use it for his good, for his glory. Wherever you are, no matter what your circumstance, don't take it for granted. Don't think that it's because you're beauty. Don't think because it's your intelligence, your resume, your father, your fame, because people in high places, because of the way you look, because of your circumstances. No. Wherever we are, no matter what we do, is by God's direction. God is the reason. God is putting us where we are. Only God. So we can never take anything for granted. And we can never say that, oh, God can. You see how God used, the king. God, we don't want to take anything for granted. We don't want to complain in a situation where God put us. And sometimes, when somebody deny you a promotion or refuse to give you something, don't blame the person. Because just like Vashti, God hardened Vashti's heart to say no, not to go. It wasn't her. It was God. So sometimes we may ask for something, and when the person says no, it may not be even coming from the person. It may be coming from God. So sometimes when you have a promotion, you can't get it. You don't get it. And they shut the door in your face. It may not be those people. It may just be God preparing you to do something better, or wanting you to stay there for his will, for his purpose. So I'm going to come back so that we can pick some of the moral lessons here, so we can dive into a little bit. But this is the longest one, guys, for me. But it is impossible for me to do this, to do it short. And this is just high level. And this is just to encourage you to read the book of Esther. And I'm encouraging you to go to use KANGUKA, the link, to go in there for you to really follow this teaching. And I promise you will not disappoint. I promise you will learn so much from this book. So I don't want you to miss it. So until we come back again and dive more into Esther's story and the moral lessons, I want you to share this with everyone you know. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already, and also check out the rest of the videos. But until then, I want you to stay safe and blessed, and I'll see you on the next one.